know, I think I always, if I were to be honest, I think I always thought homeschool kids were weird growing up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Did you think so too?
Yeah.
But your family homeschooled.
I know, that's why I say that. That's why I can say that.
You weren't homeschooled though.
Sure wasn't.
That's
just
also
the
why you
youngest
can say
sisters.
that. So originally I didn't really want to homeschool our kids. Tom was more.
I was all for it. I did also mention that back in the day I did think that homeschoolers were weird. But what I have noticed about homeschool kids of today's generation is that they can carry on a conversation. They introduce themselves to adults. They do eye contact. I think that they just have really good people skills.
I mean, probably part of my hesitation too was that I just don't know anything about homeschooling, choosing curriculums, bringing 4 kids home from school now. So we're jumping in like kindergarten to 5th grade. And so I'm actually excited that I get to partner with Lisa and Angela, and we're starting our own private Facebook group called Simple Homes and Homeschools. So it's all about simplifying your house, but also running a simple homeschool too, because if I'm gonna do this, I need to keep it simple. Like that is the only way I will agree to it. And so I'm kind of like bare bones for at least for this first year till we get things figured out. And so we're starting this private Facebook group. There is a membership fee involved with it, but there's going to be so much value in it for new homeschooling moms, newer homeschooling moms, even for those of you who have been homeschooling for a little while. I think we're all really excited for this group. I've been able to lead a private Facebook group for the last 8 or 9 months, and I cannot believe how helpful, and I get emails on a regular basis saying that this group has changed my life, and I don't think that's an overstatement. I think when we surround ourselves with the right people, that we can do anything.
I think the community aspect of this group is what I look forward to the most, because when I get on Facebook and I scroll, and you might be feeling this way if you've made the decision to homeschool this year, and you're seeing people like just downers. They're just being real downers about homeschooling, and maybe you're nervous, but you're feeling a little excited too. Like, I'm looking forward to doing this or trying this, or maybe you're going into it still just scared stiff. Having an encouraging community, a place to go. I'm forever blown away by what a group of like-minded women on some kind of similar topic or thread can come up with to help and encourage each other. I'm like, we could change the world if y'all would just give us 10 minutes and we can fix all the problems.
So we'll put all the details down below, but you can expect daily videos from one of the leaders, lots of discussion about which curriculums, which type of homeschooling might be best for you, and especially if you're jumping in with kids that have already been going to public school or other traditional schools, how that transition is gonna go. And so it's gonna be an awesome group, but I'm excited because now we get to visit with Lisa and Angela, answer some really common homeschooling questions. But first, I'll have them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Angela Braniff. I have a YouTube channel called This Gathered Nest and a personal channel also called Angela Braniff. I'm a mom of 8 kids, and I am currently homeschooling 5 of them, going into my 9th year of homeschooling. And my oldest is 13, my youngest is 10 months. So the ages that I'm currently homeschooling is obviously my 13-year-old, my 11-year-old. I have 2 8-year-olds and a 6-year-old. So it's a spread. We've got middle school and elementary school. I have kind of an eclectic homeschool style. I kind of pull a little bit from lots of different techniques and stuff. And I've enjoyed homeschooling for many, many years. And I love sharing the stuff I've learned along the way, because I feel like I really stressed myself out in the beginning. And I'm very thankful to be more in a team that works for us now.
Hey, I'm Lisa Bass. I am a blogger on Boone.com, and then I also have a YouTube channel here, Farmhouse on Boone. We have 6 kids, 11, 9, 7, almost 5, 2, and a 9-month-old. So we are technically homeschooling 3 kids at this point. We've homeschooled from the beginning. Like Angela, there's a lot of things that we've learned over the years, a lot of things that I feel like I don't stress about like I used to. And so, yeah, excited to dive in.
All right, let's jump into the questions then. I think one of the most popular questions is, am I qualified? Can I do it?
I feel like, just from my perspective, I felt very much the same way, because I was a child that struggled in school, especially in the early elementary school years. I struggled with some dyslexia, and learning was not fun or easy for me. And my mom ended up pulling me out and homeschooling me, like I believe it was about the first or second grade when she pulled me out, and I went back and forth. So when it came time to make the decision about what to do with my own kids, I was really concerned that I didn't have what it takes. And I remember a mom that I know that it was older than me and had many more children than I did. And she said to me, Angela, you've taught your children how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to use the potty. You're their first teacher. Everything they know, they've learned from you. And she really helped me to recognize that we are our children's best teachers. We know them better than anybody else. We know what motivates them. We know what holds them back. And so there's lots of things that, of course, there's room to be anxious about. I don't remember how to do algebra, so how am I going to help my kid with that? But all of that stuff gets figured out along the way. I just think that getting past over that hump into recognizing that you actually are a teacher to your children every single day, and that if you can step back from the idea of recreating school at home and step fully into this idea of homeschooling, which looks very different most of the time, you absolutely have what it takes to do this.
That's very encouraging. I feel like very inspired right now. I was actually looking at the requirements in Minnesota where we live, and it actually says in it, if you are a parent, you are qualified. And I was just like, it kind of just put my mind at ease. But I was just like, okay, like if you are a parent, you are qualified. For us, I mean, we've lived as minimalists now for like 6 years. And so you get a fair amount of pushback or criticism. I have received more criticism in this past year when we started talking about homeschooling our kids than I ever have with any of the other ways we've choose to live. So I do know that there can be criticism. A lot of times we have fears if we're going from public school to homeschooling of what other people are going to think. So Lisa, have you had any criticism, or do you have any encouragement for moms that are kind of worried about what other people are going to think?
Yeah, there was a lot of questions like that. Thankfully for us, our families have always been really supportive. I wouldn't say that they didn't homeschool, but they've never said anything negative to us. And it's been so long since we've made that decision that I don't remember getting much criticism on it, because we were talking about it from when our children were born. On the internet, yeah, you get your fair share of people who say that you're sheltering them. Obviously, socialization, we got that question over and over and over again. So that's a concern of people's. And I mean, for the most part, I haven't gotten a whole lot of pushback. I think it's a lot more common now.
Yeah, and I think it's probably never been easier. I know, like Tom just told one of our neighbors that we're switching, and he's like, oh yeah, well with everything going on, it just makes sense, right? And so I was like,
right, yeah.
It's a little bit easier right now.
Yeah, it's not a weird year at all to announce it.
Yeah. And Angela, let's just talk about socialization, the elephant in the room. What would you say to parents that maybe they have social kids? Like we have one that is very social, and I worry that she's going to miss seeing her friends at school.
Yeah, I always like to jokingly respond to people and say, you socialize dogs, you educate children in terms of what are they doing in this school building. And how many of us remember being yelled at by a teacher if you were a chatty Cathy in school, being told, you're not here to socialize, you're here to learn. And then everybody's like, well, what about socialization? I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't add up. But the truth is that I think that when people ask that question, they mean something different than the Webster's definition of socialization. They're talking about that. They're talking about kids who really thrive, they're more extroverts, and they feed off of the energy of others, and they need others. This is a strange time to answer that question, because if it were any other time other than the year 2020 of our Lord and Savior, which has been the strangest year ever, then I would tell you that there's a million ways to get your kids involved in activities and homeschool groups. And it doesn't even have to be homeschool groups. There's so many places that you can plug your kids into. But in this current climate of things, it is going to be more challenging for parents this coming school year we have fun Fridays, and every Friday we go on a field trip, we do something. And so that's often when we would schedule group activities and stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to happen this year. So I think we're all going to have to do, specifically in this school year, until things really open back up, we are all have to get creative about how we socialize our children. Because right now, socialization is like a 4-letter word. You're not supposed to socialize with anybody. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, I think, this year for our homeschoolers.
That's good. And you bring up a good point, Angela. How many days a week does your family homeschool, and about roughly how many hours per day?
We do year-round homeschooling. So we take multiple week breaks throughout the year, but we take like a huge summer break. We don't take 3 months off at a time. So the way that we kind of work that is that we school 4 days a week. So we have the 5th day, which is Friday usually, that's our fun Friday field trip days, other things like that. And then in terms of hours, it depends on the child and their age level. We are usually trying to get done with all core subjects by lunchtime. So if we're starting at 8, 9, somewhere around there, then we're trying to be done by about noon with most major subjects. And then in the afternoon is when we'll save, if we've got a documentary we want to watch or a science experiment we want to do or something like that, we'll save that for the afternoon. That's something, especially if it's something we want to do with the older kids while the littler ones are napping, that sort of thing. So, and we have a very our life, we're living our life. Our life is education and learning, and we see a lot of things as things that aren't just sitting down in front of a workbook. If we're baking bread, homemade bread in the kitchen in the afternoon, we're doing measurement, and that, my friends, is math. So it's you have to think outside the box a little bit and recognize the things that you're teaching your kids that you're doing unintentionally. It doesn't, like I said, have to be a worksheet all the time.
Yeah, actually, ours looks really similar to yours, Angela. We do year round, like you said, like just this morning on the front porch for most morning. And then we also just do before lunchtime and 4 days a week too. So we were talking about socialization earlier, and that is also what we try to do. We try on Fridays, which we do most of the time, to either do a field trip, get together with friends, other homeschoolers, do something fun, whether it be educational or just to actually socialize. But I was going to talk back about whenever you were talking about socialization. I think one of the biggest concerns people have is not just that kids get their needs for friends met. That's one thing. But I think they're also really worried that they're going to be like the stereotypical awkward homeschooler type of kid. And I can tell you that I have introverts and I have extroverts for kids. I have one she's very social, but she's the one that wants to have time alone in her room for 3 hours a day to work on her projects. And all of them, when we go to a park, we see other kids right away, joining with them, starting some kind of game. There's something instantly headed up, like a hide and seek or something. And I find that they can talk to people of all ages. They have no trouble. They're not awkward. And so,
yeah.
But yeah, same with us. We try to get the core ones out of the way in the morning. And then in the afternoons, like I was mentioning, my daughter yesterday, she sewed a dress, and it was like all pieced together, different fabrics, but it's wearable and she's wearing it. And she has access to her sewing machine. And we count that. I mean, you can't count that into your core hours, of course, but that all to me is a valuable thing to learn.
That's awesome. And so let's talk logistics. How do you set up a homeschooling space if you don't actually have space for a homeschooling space?
Well, for us personally, we don't have a homeschooling space dedicated because our house is a 4-bedroom house and we have 6 kids. So, already we're sharing rooms. And it really depends on the seasons too. Like right now, we have a covered old farmhouse front porch, and all of our school supplies are just on the front porch at times. Like they don't even come in the house, and every morning they go there. Even if it's raining, at least it's warm. So 5 months out of the year, that would be where we'll homeschool. And then there's times where it's upstairs in one of the kids' bedrooms whenever it's cold, or it might depend on too what's going on with the blog. So if I need to be making some certain video, Luke might take the kids upstairs into one of the bedrooms and do homeschool there. So it's very portable. You know, you only really need a few things. And so you can, if you don't have dedicated space, which would be nice, it's totally possible. What do you ladies do or planning to do?
We kind of had this awkward space in our house now that we've turned into a schooling space, knowing that we were going to do it this fall. So we kind of just used some unused space, even though our house is small. It's only 1,500 square feet, but we were able to kind of find a little space to dedicate to it. So from what I'm hearing from others, it doesn't have to like take up a lot of room. And if it has to be done at the dining room table, then that's great too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is I'm a bad example of like, do as I say, not as I do, because we do have a homeschooling room and it's large because it's a finished in garage. But we are getting ready to move, and in our new house, it's an older home built in the early 1900s. It does not have, we're shrinking bedrooms and all that, much like Lisa, probably a similar layout. So we won't have a fully dedicated homeschool room. So I won't have my big chalk wall and all that kind of stuff anymore. But I'm kind of looking forward to the challenge of like changing it up and doing something different, because I do find that even though I have this dedicated space with this table, that oftentimes my kids end up curled up on the sofa with their books, or at the kitchen table closer to the kitchen where the action is happening in the house. And they kind of just spread out. I think that the idea that you need a classroom, you definitely don't. I think most homeschool moms will tell you that they could absolutely homeschool from the car, from wherever. I mean, we homeschooled when we were living in our camper, which was, I don't know, 250 square feet and 9 people. So you can make it happen. It's just a matter of having space in your lap for your books. We just get creative with it, but you definitely don't have to have a Pinterest-worthy homeschool space at all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No, my kids were out in the barn this morning. Okay, I came out there and I was gonna hold one of the goats, and I was like, so yeah, that's where some reading happened today.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And so let's talk to our friends who are working moms. I mean, the three of us we work and homeschool too, or I will be homeschooling too. And so I think that's probably one of the things I get passionate about too, and I'm excited to share in our group, is the tips and the tactics for time management. And so do you guys feel like it's hard to balance, or do you feel like you've kind of gotten it streamlined so that you can do well in both worlds?
I mean, for us, that is something we have to reevaluate really often, because things just change so much. So we had a baby less than a year ago. When he was first born, you know, I always had him on me, but then now he's transitioning out to naps. So many factors, like whether it's nice outside, what's going on with the business, what age the baby is. So now school, things like revolve around the baby's nap, whereas before it was a whole thing. So we find that we're on date nights. We probably every 3 months or so will be like, okay, when do we need school time to be? When do we need work time to be? And reevaluate that, because it is hard to balance if you don't constantly revisit it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I totally agree. I think especially if you have a more traditional work schedule, you're working for a boss and you're showing up and you're sitting at your desk at home, that's one thing. But if you're working for yourself, then you obviously have some leeway in that. And so I do a lot of, and I've had to get creative depending on the fullness of what's going on work-wise for me and then what's going on school-wise. I will say that to be truthful, there's always feeling of I could be doing more in either category of, I think, but that's very common for women. We always feel like we want to be giving 110%. And even when we are, we still sometimes feel like it's not enough. But I've had to make sacrifices in order to have things the way that I want them. And for me, my family, my kids' homeschooling has always come first, which means I have to make sure that the job stuff can fit in outside of that. Wouldn't be a challenge. It does mean that sometimes I wake up really early and come out to my office and work before everybody wakes up, and then I come back in as people are starting to wake up and it's breakfast time, and then work later in the afternoon. That's usually my goal, is to do homeschool and everything in the morning, like I said, wrap up around lunch, and then try to get all my work done in the afternoon. But yeah, I have to get creative with it, but I like that. I like the flexibility, and I like I get very bored if I have to do the same thing every day. Some people thrive in that, and I do not. I start to go crazy, and I'm like, that's it. We do something totally different. I'm quitting my job. I'm doing, and I start to go off the deep end.
That's good. So let's talk real quick. I think one other thing that might deter moms who are thinking about homeschooling is, what if my kids don't listen to me? Do they listen to teachers better?
So even if I'm not trying to teach them something, there's times where my kids don't listen to me. So here's what I would say. I think if your kid's already been in school and you think that they are going to struggle with the transition, I can't speak to that because I have homeschooled from day one. So, well, actually, that's not entirely true. Hold on just a second. I did send 2 of my kids to public school for 1 year after my twins were born, and I felt like I was up to here with stress. And it turned out to only prove that that wasn't the right thing for us, which was good, I guess, in that regard. But I don't know. I've just found that it takes a little getting used to for everybody. And if you're trying to play a role, if you're trying to go back to like 2nd grade where you were playing with your friends and somebody was the teacher and somebody was the student and you were doing it in this very like sort of traditional roles, yeah, that's probably going to be a little bit strange for your kids because they're like, oh, which hat do you have on right now? Are you putting on teacher hat? Or are you mom hat? Like, what's happening? Especially if it means that the rules change, the rules of engagement, how we interact with each other changes, whether we're doing school or hanging out at home, whatever. So I think I would encourage you to blur the lines and not think that you need to like put on a hat of each different character you are. Like, just again, like sort of lean into this idea that you're their parent, you've always taught them, and it just looks a little bit different, and learning together how you best interact, and learning how your kids learn best. Like, this is all just, it's unlike boots on the ground. Like, you've just got to get in there and do it. But I think that, kind of taking a step back and easing in, not feeling like you have to show up with your glasses and your chalk to just like, here we go, kids, teacher, mom is here. I think that can be intimidating and weird for kids too.
Yeah.
Just like it feels weird for you. So yeah. I don't know, I would just encourage you to try to be more natural with how you approach it.
I imagine this is something that's going to come up fairly regularly in the Facebook group too, and I think it's going to be a safe place to have those conversations. So I'm glad for that, because we'll probably I'll need reminders. But go ahead, Lisa, say what you were going to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, in the beginning, Angela, you were talking about how you need to reframe what you're thinking. Like, this is not necessarily school as it was at school at home. It's more of a lifestyle. My question box on Instagram asked me, how do I get my 6-year-old boy to read? And she was like, she put some kind of emoji or something, like she was really frustrated. And my answer to that is, don't. Like, you can have him listen, but he's a little boy and he will learn to read. He will. It's just, I think we have these expectations about every single child at every single level, and they all have to be the exact same. And we get these things in our head, and then we get really stressed out when there's one kid who's just a little bit different. But that's the beauty of homeschool, is you're not trying to talk to, 25 peers. You're addressing your child where they are, and you know them best.
That's really good. Oh, there's so many more questions. We're going to do one more question, and then probably, I'm guessing, in our Instagram stories and stuff throughout the upcoming week, Facebook, other places, we can be answering some of these questions too, if that's okay with you guys. But last question, what if I want to homeschool, but my husband isn't on board? I'm the one who will be doing most of the work with the homeschooling.
Well,
That's a tricky one.
It's a tricky one because I don't know your relation. I don't know your dynamic with your spouse. And I certainly don't want to get anybody into any kind of arguments or trouble. But here's what I will say. In my experience, been married for almost 15 years, and I've had to play this song and dance when it comes to, we've adopted 5 of our children, and approaching my husband about adoption and things like that. That's a really big deal, right? Here's what I found. A couple of things. One, men tend to have very protective instincts, protective and security instincts. So they, and again, these are generalizations, but just hear me out. So I think that they are often looking at it, they're looking at your health. Believe it or not, in many cases, they're thinking, you already seem really stressed out, and now you're asking to do this thing, which it stresses me out to even think about, and now you want me, and now you're going to be even more stressed out, which means you're going to be mean to me, and that doesn't sound like any fun. I think that they're thinking about that. They're thinking about the perception, what other people, oh great, I'm the dad of the weird school kids, here we go. And they're envisioning this and I have nothing against this, by the way, let me be clear, but they're envisioning this Jean Jumper, Michelle Duggar-esque family is what they think that they are becoming. Again, nothing wrong with any of that. I'm just trying to give a little insight as to what I think that sometimes some of the fears are. And so I have found that if I can come with information, I can come armed with information, other people to show them, look, this family homeschools, look at this, look at what they do, look at how they're doing this, and give them some living examples of people that you think have a similar lifestyle to you, would feel relatable to your husband, to let them see that this is working for this family. Pull statistics, that'll help you right away. Pull some real statistics and information about the outcomes for homeschoolers, because it's pretty incredible. And if you're a believer, I would encourage you to pray for your husband. That's the biggest thing that I've always done when my husband and I don't see eye to eye, is pray that the Lord would grab hold of his heart and whatever this thing is, and help to see it the way that I do, or to change mine, because maybe it's not right. But I feel like coming with much information as you can to try to sort of head off at the pass a lot of those concerns, and sit down and have frank conversations about what are your concerns and how can I mitigate them? How can we address this together so we ensure that we're both on the same page in terms of how this is going to flow and operate, depending on your reasons and stuff for wanting to do it.
Yeah. I think that's really good. So you can find all those details down below, but we love you. I'm excited. If you join the group, I'm excited to see you over there. But if not, everything here will stay the same, and we will still love to see you right here as well.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Toodles.
Crap, you're going to use that one. Dang it.
I don't know if I am.
Ciao.